Three flashing lights in my mirror, a quiet street near an elementary school, and that sinking feeling in my chest that told me this wasn't really about a traffic stop at all. I had barely slowed to pick up my little cousins thinking about homework and dinner when suddenly I was pulled over, hands on the wheel, breathing steady, already knowing how this story usually goes. You know what I mean? You learn patterns when you live long enough on the wrong side of them. The deputy walked up smiling too friendly, talking about my turn signal, saying I should have used it sooner, and I nodded because nodding is easier than arguing, easier than being right. I handed over my license registration insurance calm, as I could be telling myself this would be quick, that I'd be back on the road in a minute. Then he leaned back, sniffed the air like he'd rehearsed it, and said it casually. Definitely smell some green. Yeah, that happened just like that. And in that exact moment, the stop stopped being about a signal and became something else entirely. I remember staring straight ahead, feeling my shoulders tighten, while my voice stayed even, telling him I didn't have anything in the car because I didn't, and because I knew that part didn't even matter. Once they say they smell something, the script is already written. He asked if I had a medical card. I said no. He hummed like he was thinking, and then the questions started stacking up, all polite, all framed like favors, like we were buddies, just chatting on the side of the road. Anything I need to know about. Anything in the car that might surprise me. You mind if we take a look? I kept saying no, calmly, respectfully, because I know my rights, and I also know how fragile they can be when you're standing alone on asphalt with a badge in front of you. And the thing is, this wasn't random, not really. I'd been talking about this department filing records requests, posting videos, asking questions people didn't like. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't threatening anyone, I was just consistent, and consistency makes certain people nervous. So when he stepped back and tapped his radio, I felt that familiar twist in my stomach because I knew what was coming next before I even saw the K9 truck roll in. Another officer showed up, different face, same energy, introducing himself like this was all routine, saying he was just going to walk his dog around the car real quick. I didn't argue because arguing doesn't stop a dog. The dog circled once, twice, and the handler nodded like they'd agreed on it beforehand. Dog alerted, he said 3 words that carry more weight than truth ever does in moments like this. Suddenly, I was being told to step out of the vehicle, slow movements, hands visible, every instinct telling me to stay calm, even as my heart started pounding louder in my ears. They stood me off to the side and started searching, doors open, trunk popped, console emptied, glove box dumped, going under the seats, under the mats, even under the car. And I remember thinking how quiet it all felt, how normal it must have looked to anyone driving by, just another stop, just another guy pulled over, nothing to see here. But inside it felt heavy, like being peeled apart piece by piece while pretending you're fine with it. One of the officers leaned in close at one point, voice low, almost friendly again, saying, "You've been super cool with me, man. If there's anything I need to worry about, now's the time. I'll work with you." And I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so transparent. What he meant was, say something, give us anything, make this worth it. I told him again, there was nothing in the car, and they kept looking anyway longer than they needed to, longer than made sense. And when they finally came up empty, you could feel the frustration shift in the air. That's when my phone buzzed, and I saw my granddad's name pop up. I'd called him earlier just in case, because that's what you do when you've lived through enough of these moments to know they don't always end clean. Minutes later, he pulled up, older man, calm demeanor phone, already recording, and I swear you could feel the entire scene change the second he stepped out of his car. The smiles vanished. The relaxed shoulders squared up. The officers who had been chatty suddenly found the ground very interesting. My granddad didn't yell, didn't insult anyone, just asked simple questions in a steady voice, the kind of questions that don't sound dangerous unless you're trying to hide something. What's the reason for the stop? Who pulled him over? Can I get your name and badge number? You could see them hesitate, hear the pauses, stretch a little too long, watch the way they avoided eye contact. And it was wild how fast the power dynamic shifted, just because someone informed and unafraid showed up with a camera. One officer snapped that he didn't need to talk to my granddad, and my granddad just nodded and said that was fine, he just needed the call number. No drama, no threats, just accountability, and for some reason that seemed to bother them more than anything else. I stood there watching it all, hands clasped, jaw tight, feeling something strange settle in my chest, not anger, exactly, not fear either, more like relief. I wasn't alone anymore. The story wasn't just theirs to control. Suddenly there was paperwork, a written warning that hadn't existed before because earlier they'd told me it was just a verbal, "Have a good day, no big deal." Funny how that changes when questions start getting asked and cameras start rolling. They handed me the paper polite, again clipped voices telling me I was good to go. No apology, no explanation, just an ending they wanted to move past as quickly as possible. As I got back into the car, my granddad leaned toward the camera and said quietly that his grandson was just trying to pick up family from school, and I felt that lump rise in my throat because it was true, and because it shouldn't have to be said out loud to matter. We drove away, no lights, no sirens, just the weight of it all sitting with me as the street disappeared behind us. Later that night, I replayed everything in my head, the smell excuse, the dog alert, the empty search, the way their tone flipped the second accountability showed up, and it hit me how obvious it all was once you stepped back. This wasn't about safety, it wasn't about a signal, it was about control, about seeing how far they could push until someone pushed back. And the thing is, this wasn't the first time, not for me, not for my family, not for people who look like us and dare to speak up. It's a pattern, small stops turning into big intrusions, friendly words, masking implied threats, cooperation dangled like a reward that never actually comes. They expect people to fold, to confess to things they didn't do, to get tired and say something just to make it end. They don't expect people to know their rights, to stand together, to document everything, to remember names and badge numbers and call details. Nobody went to